Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, January 19th, 2024. This will be our last broadcast for a week. I'll be away for a week next week, and then we should be back up and running the week after that. So just a heads up to anyone who hasn't heard the news yet. Let's go ahead and jump back. Let's see what happened yesterday. Now, yesterday morning was very choppy, right? It was a very unideal type of market to be trading, and I recognized it almost instantly and just kind of stayed away. But let's take a look. Now, some great things ended up happening here that we're going to talk about, but the first 2 hours of the market was pretty piss poor, right? Just kind of jumping around, not going anywhere. The main kind of thing that you want to take away from what was happening here is the bulls were defending the VWAP, right? And they were attempting to push higher. Now, there were two, where was it here? There were two setups. And you guys know, for whatever reason, like I said, over 90% of my winning trades are shorts. And so this setup, we've gone through it a whole bunch of times when we make a high and then we pull back and then try to break out to the upside, and then the price fails and we get the crossover and then you get the tag. That happened a couple times here, although this was kind of maybe the not necessarily a high to a slightly lesser high. It was a high to a slightly higher high. Same type of idea here, but you get that attempt by the bulls to bring the market back up and break out higher, but then it fails. We get back down through the 200, you get your crossover, and then you get your tag here. So there were two kind of instances of that back to back. Unfortunately, the first one didn't quite give you anything. It maybe gave you about a point or two. And then that second one was basically the moneymaker if you were looking to short. Once you notice that, hey, bulls are defending VWAP, trying to hold it higher, and then we fail right from there and make that slightly higher high, we get the crossover, price gets back down through VWAP, and then bam, you get it. This, I guess technically here, we never got back through VWAP, but that is, again, just something I really like to trade. Now, I didn't have a divergence there, but still a similar type of setup there. So the first 2 hours, outside of those two things I mentioned, just kind of a total mess. And if you were buying VWAP, expecting the market to continue to push, you probably made a little bit money on the two pops here, but it never really got much further than about 96. Now, what did we say in the pre-market yesterday? Yesterday we said everything was really pointing for the bulls to continue to push, and what we wanted to see the bulls do was hold right around 77, 73, 47, 70, 47, 69, and then finally the last level that we were willing to give the bulls on the pullback was 47, 65, 75. So they were all stacked together really close. I told you, for basically it was just kind of a big pocket, and we wanted to see the bulls defend this to have faith that all of the clues for the bulls were going to follow through. So it took a little bit of time, right? 2 hours of chop. Still holding VWAP, giving us clues for the bulls. Now this, if I was watching this live, I would have expected this type of pullback and then took profit right in this area because the expectation was for the bulls to hold around 50% of the previous day, which is right here, and continue to try and push. So what happened here was they pulled it back. Again, a nice healthy in-breath. And then where did they hold? Well, interestingly enough, they held the first pocket for an attempt, but then notice what happened here, guys. Discrete holds right off the 200, right? So we tried to hold the 77, didn't quite hold, but that should have been a clue to you guys that, hey, that's a pretty good sign for a push or an expectation that this is probably going to come to the next area. And again, ideally, we want to hold right around the close, maybe right around the 50% area. And so what ended up happening here, right inside of the pocket, if you go to the report, I gave you these three discrete levels and said that that was the most probable area to see the bounce. And I think I highlighted down here about as far as we would want to go is maybe down to the 65, 75. But ideally, they were going to hold one of these three levels up above. Well, that's exactly what happened. And then from there, so the market, in my opinion, became really easy to trade once we held the very level I told you guys we need to hold for our bullish bias. So we held that area, and I wasn't at the charts at this time, but we held that area, started to break out, got the crossover, and then it just became a rip your face off rally back up. And we held the FMA. It was, again, in the aggressive pushes, in the aggressive sell-offs, we just ride that FMA all the way up. We got our textbook pullback to the 200, not once, I think we got it twice, or maybe not. Yeah, twice was over here, just bounced one tick in front. And so there were great opportunities. Once we held the level we wanted the bulls to hold, we got the crossover, we got price back through VWAP, and now, in my opinion, made sense to go ahead and see if we were going to get the very push that we were expecting in our pre-market, right? So we got a healthy leg out. We pulled back and we held about 50% of that leg, which is very textbook. We got back through VWAP, and then it was a beautiful rally out. So there were good opportunities, in my opinion, about midday there until the close. Again, riding the FMA the whole way up, and then on the deeper pullback, holding the 200 nearly to the tick and one tick in front. And then at the end of the day, even tested it one more time for this little shallow bounce that we got of 5 points. Still could have made money, and then pulled back to the scaffolding at the end of the day, and then bounced. So great opportunities at the end of the day. At the beginning of the day, again, super choppy at the beginning, but I do think that, well, this one, I guess we never got the cross through the VWAP, so I kind of misspoke. But here, this right here, guys, seeing them hold VWAP, hold VWAP, hold VWAP, and then they fail back down through it, and you got your crossover, that's that trade I absolutely love. So that brings us here to the overnight session into our pre-market here this morning, and the bulls are continuing to rally this thing. We're still holding above VWAP. We got a deeper pullback right to the 200 to the tick here in the overnight session. Let's see if we can bring it in. So a little peek through by maybe a point, and then we got the hold to the tick. And now you can see we're rallying up and failing right off. What is this red line? We put this on the charts a couple days ago. Last year's high. So in the overnight session coming into the open right now, the bulls rallied it all the way up to test the high of last year, and now we're getting a nice little healthy in-breath or pullback. So everything that we talked about in yesterday's pre-market did come to fruition, and that seems to be the case pretty often here. So let's go ahead and see what we can eke out of the charts here coming into Friday. And again, hope you guys have a great weekend and a great week next week, because I will not be here to run the broadcast. So enjoy, and we'll see you again.